On today's show, we're taking a look back at the Pacers series. Where did it all go wrong? Why did it all go wrong? We've got Greg Swartz from Bleacher Report here to talk about all of it on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. Joined today by Greg Swartz of Bleacher Report. Been with BR for a very long time. Does a great job not only writing about the Cavs, but the NBA at large. Going to spend a good chunk of the show talking about a story he wrote a couple of weeks ago at this point, after the Cavs were ousted in 5 games by the Indiana Pacers, just about where this all went wrong and kind of dive a little bit deeper into this and maybe what can be fixed or what needs to be changed moving forward. But before we get to that, thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor as we get started. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Greg, you wrote a great article, listicle, whatever you want to call it, about what went wrong for the Cavs in that Pacers series. And I think that we have had a little bit of time now to digest that 5-game loss, which nobody saw coming. I think even if you were amongst the most optimistic of Pacers fans, you probably didn't see them winning that series in as short as 5 games. I think everybody saw that being either a Cavs win or a longer series than it was. But you put together 5 big reasons why the Cavs lost that series, where things went south. And I want to start with number 1 as opposed to starting with number 5 and going all the way down to 1. But the biggest reason, and I agree with this, and I think the conversation has been a little unfair to the Cavs in this aspect, but your number 1 reason, injuries to Darius, Garland, Evan Mobley, and DeAndre Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, obviously injuries don't paint the whole picture. You can't just point to the injuries and say, well, if we were fully healthy, this team is, sweeping the Pacers. I don't think that's going to happen. And I think the first thing we should do is we should give the Pacers a lot of credit, because this is a team that, just went into Madison Square Garden and won 2 games to go up 2-0 at one point over the New York Knicks and could very well be on their way to the NBA Finals. So this is a very good team. Every game they win, I feel a little bit better about the Cavs. Like, oh, maybe it wasn't just us. Yeah, I mean, you can't talk about the series without talking about the injuries, because obviously Darius doesn't play the first couple games. Evan has the ankle. DeAndre Hunter goes up and gets fouled. Well, it wasn't called a foul, but he gets fouled by Ben Mathurin, hits the floor hard. And just these players just weren't the same. I mean, if you look at DeAndre Hunter for the rest of the series, he averages 8 points per game, shoots 30% from the field. I mean, this is a guy that finished 4th in 6th Man of the Year voting in the regular season. Was averaging 19 points per game before the trade to the Cavaliers with the Atlanta Hawks. Was still very productive with the Cavs. A huge piece of that bench, and that's why you traded for him. Was he was going to be a guy that you could play in the playoffs, and after that injury, he wasn't. He wasn't very good. And then Evan coming back, and his raw numbers were pretty good. If you look at he was still scoring, he was still rebounding the ball, wasn't getting the shot attempts that he should have, but the problem was he couldn't make the same defensive impact that he was previously. I mean, you're talking about a guy that was Defensive Player of the Year. In his 135 minutes on the court, the Cavs were minus 35. That was the worst mark of any player on the Cavs, tied with Dean Wade. So when you have a guy that is supposed to make such a big impact for you on both ends of the ball, obviously that made a big impact. And then Darius, I mean, you talk about a team that was struggling to generate any sort of offense. We're just going back to hero ball that we saw time and time again when LeBron was here, when Kyrie was here. Give the ball to one guy and everybody goes stand around and watch. That's the opposite of how this team played all season. And it was tough to watch. And a lot of that was, Darius Garland wasn't out there. And then when he did come back, I mean, he was a shell of himself. I mean, he shot 18% from 3 in the series. At one point, I'm watching him go one-on-one with TJ McConnell, and he can't get past TJ McConnell to get to the basket. And I was like, all right, clearly there's something wrong with this guy. So yeah, I mean, obviously there are other issues, but not having a fully healthy team is number 1 on my list.
Right. And I don't think that's wrong. And I would add in too, the injuries that Donovan Mitchell was dealing with. He played in the first half of game 4, was ruled out for the rest of that game with an ankle injury, but he was dealing with a calf injury to that left calf for that entire series. Like, that was not something that, oh, he hurt his ankle and it affected him for one game. Like, if you watch that series, I think you could tell, and I think it was really evident too in his jump shooting numbers, that he wasn't the same explosive guy. And that's part of the reason why I do think he resorted to trying to get to the free throw line and trying to get to the basket as often as possible, because his jumper wasn't there near the same level it was during the regular season. I think part of that can certainly be attributed to some lower body injuries that he was dealing with. And after, like, in the immediate aftermath, Greg, of this series, I think there was a really big point made by folks like us, by the fan base nationally, that the Cavs couldn't use injuries as an excuse. They were a 64-win team. They were favored in every single game of this series. They won a game by 24, 26 points, whatever it was in game 3. The injuries couldn't be the excuse. You couldn't say, well, if the Cavs were healthy. And to their credit, the Cavs didn't do that. They refused to say that the injuries were a factor, even though everybody knows that they were. But they refused to make that an excuse, which I do think is the right thing for the team to do. But I also think on our end, it has kind of gotten a little bit away from, well, the injuries were an excuse, to now it's, I think, and to some people's minds, like, we just forget that they happen. We forget that they matter. And it's got to be somewhere in the middle. It's not an excuse. And there were more things that went wrong, and we will talk about those things. But I also think that when we talk about this series, we have to remember that the injuries do matter. Like, if all 3 of the Cavs' best players were, 1, not available for every game, and 2, all 3 of them were essentially playing on one leg the entire series they played, I do think I have to look at this and say, okay, maybe the injuries mattered more than we realized in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I think that's number 1 on the list. If we're going right down the number 2, just you look at the difference in ball movement on this team. I mean, it was just, it didn't look like the same team that we saw in the regular season. Like I said, a lot of that was Darius Garland, and one of the Cavs' biggest strengths in the regular season was just their ability to dominate opponents on the 3-point line. So for me, my number 2 is the battle of the 3-point line, not just how good the Pacers were, but just how bad the Cavs were. And you looked at game 1, and I mean, the Cavs just were getting good looks, couldn't make them. The Pacers were just knocking down contested shots, and it really set the tone for the series. And I feel like a lot of that was just ball movement overall. You look at the Cavs passing numbers in this game, you look at the tracking data on NBA.com. Indiana for the series averaged 329 passes a game. That's a lot. They got almost 77 points a game off those passes. So all that ball movement, getting open shots, just finding the open shooter, you're not playing that ISO ball, that led to a lot of points. So 329 passes a game for the Pacers. Cavs passed the ball 244. Now, that's a huge disparity. We talked about the Pacers getting 77 points a game off those passes. Cavs got 54. And I mean, that was evident when you're watching it. I mean, whether it was Donovan Mitchell trying to play hero, if it was Ty Jerome just forcing too much, Darius Garland not being out there, you take your starting point guard off, obviously it's going to affect your team's passing. But just the difference in the 3-point differential for these two teams. Donovan Mitchell, 12 of 49 from 3 in the series, 25%. Darius Garland, 16%. I mean, you just look up and down the lineup, all these Cavs players, outside of like Evan Mobley and Isaac Okoro, all 7 of the Cavs rotation members were well below their 3-point average in that. And I think that really hurt them, especially after they finished 2nd overall in the regular season, 3-point accuracy. And then Miami, they shoot 44% from 3. And then you get to the series in round 2 against the Pacers, 29%. I mean, that just wasn't the Cavs team that we saw. So the fact that they even kept some of those games close when they were getting barraged at the 3-point line was impressive, because that was a major source of strength for them in the regular season and in the first round of the playoffs. And they just got destroyed at the 3-point line during the entire series.
Right. That's so spot on. In thinking about game 1, going back to it, where the Cavs were very much, I don't know if caught off guard is the right way to phrase it, with like being prepared for the tempo that the Pacers wanted to play at, but they were not ready for it. And that was like, okay, I think they kind of figured it out towards the end. They went on that run in the third quarter of that game. And you thought, okay, they'll be fine. And they're also not going to have a shooting game like this again. In game one, they were 9 of 39. They had played up until that point. They played 86 basketball games between the regular season and the 4-game sweep against the Miami Heat. In all 86 of those games, the Cavs hit at least 10 3-pointers. In game one, they only hit 9. You're like, okay, well, that's probably not going to happen again. Like that is just it's a crazy abnormal 3-point performance. They'll be fine. They figured out the tempo part of things. They cannot shoot the basketball worse. And then you fast forward. Okay, so that was 23% from 3-point range in game one. Game two, 28% from 3-point range. So it's like, okay, well, that was better. They made 11 of 39, but they still did not have a good night from beyond the arc. And of course, that was a game Tyrese Haliburton hits a game winner. And if the Cavs hit one more 3-pointer in that game, or do like any of 5 to 7 things correctly in the final minute, they win that game. Then you even get to game 3 where the Cavs dominated that game and they led pretty comfortably throughout most of that night. They still only shot 29% from 3. Now you could say, okay, well, at least they generated more, like they did a better job generating looks. They're 14 of 47 and won a game by 26 points or 22 points, excuse me. That is something it's like, well, is this ever going to turn around? And the number in game 4 is fake because they were, I think, 5 of 19 at halftime. They finished 14 of 35 because they hit a bunch of threes in the second half when the game didn't matter after they trailed by 41. And then we get to game 5, and once again, they only make 9 3-pointers. Like they had 2 games in this series where they had 9 3-pointers made. They had no games in the first 86 games of the year with less than 10. Like the shooting variance for them, and I don't even know if it's variance so much as maybe it is, maybe it's not. Like I don't know if I can call just that prolonged stretch of bad shooting variance.
Yeah, a lot of it was, I don't think it was even analytical. Like you just watch the game and you're like, they're clearly not shooting with confidence. They're clearly not stepping into it. They're shooting this because like, well, if we miss this, I mean, India is going to be down the court in 2 seconds and they're going to get a fast break layup or something. Like I think there was just this real mental edge that the Pacers took over after game 1 when they hit all theirs and the Cavs didn't make theirs. And it really, I think it kind of set the tone for the rest of the series because a lot of them, the Cavs got some decent looks and they just could not knock them down. And like I said, it just didn't seem like anyone was shooting them with confidence. Like the one guy that was shooting well, Max Strus, can't hit anything in game 5 in the most important game. So,
right.
So yeah, that was reason 2 for me. Reason 3.
We're going to get to reason 3.
Yeah, go ahead.
Break because we are going to talk toughness. We're going to talk about all that other stuff. But first, I have to tell you about DoorDash. That's right. NBA fans, you know what time it is. It's playoff season. That means big performances, even bigger rewards because DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members during the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. Anytime a player drops 50 or more points in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more. Use code WINGSTOP50, that is WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, totally free. What's better than that? That all sounds great. I'm hungry right now. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms do apply. So again, make sure you sign up for Dash Pass, and you will unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members can grab a free 3-piece crispy tender combo from Wingstop the next day with a $20 or more order and code WINGSTOP50. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms do apply. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. We got through the first 2 reasons why the Cavs lost this series: shooting and injuries. Yeah, we know. If you watched that, you probably could infer that those were pretty high up there. Reason number 3 was, it's a 2-parter, Greg, and one of them is one that I kind of maybe had my doubts about. The other one caught me off guard. And these are the differences in depth and toughness. I was caught off guard by the depth. The toughness thing, I wanted to see the Cavs prove that in the playoffs, and they didn't. But the depth was the thing that really did surprise me about this series.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the depth was affected by the injuries because you're playing guys a lot more than you would normally play if Darius is healthy for the whole season, if DeAndre has, 2 functioning wrists, if Evan doesn't miss a game with an ankle injury. I mean, all that plays its part. But if you just look at the depth, like Indiana is, I think a lot of teams are going to copy Indiana this offseason. If you look at a team that they can go 10 players deep, we see the same thing going on with Oklahoma City. We've seen Nikola Jokic kind of talk openly about that, like we need more depth. And that hasn't always been the case. It's been NBA teams saying, get me 7 or 8 good guys. We're going to play them 40 minutes a game in the playoffs. Give me, we're going to ride our stars. And that's kind of been the recipes for success in the NBA for much of my lifetime. And now it's like, well, no, we need more depth. We need guys that can come in and hit shots and play defense. And we don't want to wear our stars out. Well, the Pacers have done a great job of doing that. And obviously they were the deeper team in this series. They had 10 guys in that series that played 10 minutes or more per game. Kenny talked about it. He's talked about they presented a physical challenge and then they could sustain it longer than we could. So I looked at the numbers for this and it definitely backs it up, because where did the Cavs get killed in this series? It wasn't in the first quarter when they were fresh. It wasn't in the third quarter when they're coming out of halftime. It was the second and fourth quarters. In this series, Pacers had a net rating in the second quarter of plus 11.5. Wow. It's pretty big over 5 games. And in the fourth quarter, that net rating was 6.5. So if you look at the other two, the Cavs either won or they're about dead even in the first and third. Second and fourth is when the Pacers really took advantage. And that's where you saw the legs starting to get a little tired. Donovan, obviously, with the way he played, he was in attack mode, got to the free throw line a lot. He was playing heavy minutes, and you could tell he was a little gassed. And we just didn't have the depth with the injuries there. So depth had a lot to do with it. And toughness, too. I mean, this was such an issue 2 years ago against the New York Knicks. And you thought, maybe it's gone away. Maybe we're tougher now. Maybe it's not an issue. It's still very much an issue. And Max Strus was one of the guys that I thought showed a lot of heart the first couple games of the series. Then obviously it can't make a shot the final game. Donovan is as tough as nails. I'm not going to say anything bad about Donovan. He was very good. But, I mean, Ty Jerome to the point that they can't even play him defensively. He was so bad. Jarrett Allen just disappearing in game 5. I think 1 total rebound over the final 3 quarters of that game. And Evan, I mean, Evan's a nice guy, but Evan's not going to be that physical enforcer, and he's just not going to have that personality. So if he's not going to be that, you need to put other guys around him that can be that personality. So toughness and depth were obviously two major factors for them and why they lost this series.
So the depth thing I was caught off guard by, because I looked at this series on paper before it started and I thought, well, the Cavs just have so many guys, like they don't have bad basketball players. And it's not to say that the Pacers do have bad basketball players. They don't. They're a very, very good team. But I looked 1 through 10 at the Cavs rotation, just like I would prefer that group. And it certainly changes when guys are having to play up a spot, right? Like with Darius Garland out for 2 games, that means more Sam Merrill, that means more Ty Jerome. And those guys are, of course, and we will get to Ty coming up in a little bit, but they're not going to typically be as effective when their opportunity is so much greater. Like when they have to take a significant jump in that sort of spot. Like if they have to do this on a Tuesday night in December, not that big of a deal. When you have to sustain this during a playoff series and when you are on the scouting report and teams have the opportunity to really do deep dives and really figure out the way that they want to either attack you or stop you, it becomes so much more difficult than in a regular season matchup. And I think that is the interesting part of the depth aspect. And the toughness thing to me is very interesting because I think back to that series against the Knicks and the toughness was the only thing anyone wanted to talk about, and rightfully so. But I thought that toughness was a different sort of toughness needed than what the Cavs need now. Like I look at that series against the Knicks, they got out rebounded. I mean, they got out hustled. They did all these things went wrong. And I thought they got out physical in that series. I don't come out of this series against the Pacers feeling like the Cavs got beat up in a fight. Like I felt like that against the Knicks. It felt like the Knicks just went in there and they won a fist fight against the Cavs. And the Pacers are not that sort of physical team. Like, it did not feel like the Cavs got out physical. Maybe not like 1 through 15. It didn't feel that way. But as a whole, to me, that's not the toughness they're searching for. What they need is mental toughness.
Yes.
And that is not something that's quantifiable, but like, you don't look at, they need to grab more rebounds. They're not mentally tough enough. Like, I don't know if there's a stat that sums it up, but I think that when that Tyrese Haliburton shot went in at the end of game 2, it broke the Cavs in a way they could not recover from. And I know that they came back a few nights later and they won game 3 in Indianapolis and made it a 2-1 series. But I don't know that they ever truly recovered from that shot that Haliburton hit in game 2.
Yeah, I would completely agree, because if that shot doesn't go in, it's 1-1, and you're like, all right, we got a good series. And obviously they won a game in Indiana, and that completely changes the series if he misses that. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, the Cavs won the rebounding battle in this series. They out rebounded the Pacers. The Pacers are not a good rebounding team. But they do have tough players. Like Aaron Nesmith is a tremendous player. Like, Aaron Nesmith is exactly the type of player that the Cavs need. I just think of guys that aren't afraid to make things uncomfortable. And by that, I mean calling out a teammate, challenging someone to be better. You hear the stories of the 2016 NBA Finals when LeBron is like dying out on the court and Ty Lue just goes up to him in the locker room at halftime and says, "You need to do more." Like,
right.
Like in the moment, you're like, what is this guy's problem? Like, he's making things uncomfortable. And if he doesn't do that, maybe the Cavs don't win that in game 7 and they're not champions. But he was okay to make things uncomfortable. Maybe, I think we need like a Richard Jefferson. We need a Channing Frye. We need somebody like that who isn't afraid to talk and isn't afraid to challenge guys. And I don't know if Tristan Thompson plays that role because, his on-court production is limited. I think you need to have a rotation player too that's not afraid to get in somebody's face and step up and say, no, we're not going to take this. We're not going to take Indiana coming back from 20 down on us. I don't care if we have to foul them. I don't care if we need to be more physical, but just to have that mental toughness, I think there needs to be some roster changes to maybe possibly address that.
So let me ask you this before we move on to talking about two guys named Ty in a second here. But do they need guys that are willing to step up and make those challenges? Because I don't know that they don't have those guys. Like, I think Max Strus qualifies as that. I think Donovan Mitchell qualifies as that. Do they need more guys like Tristan Thompson, despite the on-court production, definitely qualifies as that type of voice?
Yeah.
Do they need more guys like that, or do they need guys that respond better to that? Like, because that could be what it is. It's not always about having a guy that's willing to make it uncomfortable, because I think most locker rooms in the NBA have that. But I think so much of this is, how do you respond to adversity, whether it's created internally or externally? And that's where I think the Cavs came up short. So maybe it's not so much as they need somebody willing to make it uncomfortable, as far as they need people that are able to thrive in the spots that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would argue they could use both, because, there was the body language is not good after every big Pacer shot, after every, like, the body language was not good. And you could just feel, like you said, that it was the dagger at the end of game 2. But, even before that, after game 1, it was like, oh, wow, they hit some good shots. But yeah, for a guy that can respond, that can, okay, I don't care if they just came back from 20 down. Like, I'm going to step up and hit this big 3 right here and kind of kill that momentum. And we just didn't see enough of that from the Cavs.
You are right. And we also saw too much of one guy named Ty and maybe not enough of another guy named Ty. We're going to talk about those two next right here on Locked On Cavs. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen or watch today and every day. You can find us on YouTube at Locked On Cavs. If you're watching this video right now, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button, click subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us. Reason number 4, Greg, is a guy named Ty. That would be Tyrese Haliburton of the Indiana Pacers, who, as we just talked about, hit an absolute dagger of a shot in game 2 that put the Pacers up 2-0. Went on an incredible run in, I believe it was the second quarter of game 5, that really shifted the way that game felt inside Rocket Arena. And he was maybe not as good as a 5-game series you would expect him to be. And I think some other guys on that team deserve credit, but in the biggest moments, he stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about it. If you look at his raw numbers, there's like 17 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. Like, they were good. Those are good numbers, but they're not number one option on a team that could go to the finals good. He wasn't even their leading scorer in this series. It was Pascal Siakam, averaged like 17.8, so he actually outscored him. But like I said with Evan Mobley, like his raw numbers were pretty good. Cavs got outscored by 35 points with him on the floor. Tyrese Haliburton, with him on the floor, the Pacers outscored the Cavs by 56 points in that 5-game series. 56 points. That was over 10 points a game.
And that is with him being a minus 20 in game 3.
Yeah.
Like, he played 30 minutes in game 3. That was the game the Cavs won. And the Cavs outscored the Pacers by 20 points in the 30 minutes that he played. And they still won his minutes by 56 points.
Yeah. Yeah. He was terrible in game 3. They had the great graphic of his scoring numbers versus Donovan's, like 40-4. And you're like, oh my gosh, how are we not up in this series? So, despite that, I mean, Donovan Mitchell played 165 minutes in the series. Cavs were outscored by 9 in his minutes. And just think of how good he was scoring the ball and everything he had to do. So, obviously, the efficiency was great for him. Shot 46% from 3. Obviously, we know the 3-pointer at the end of game 2. And just the wherewithal of him, grabbing his rebound, dribbling back out, making the shot. I want to go over all of it because, it's burning in the minds of Clevelanders everywhere. But he had a great series. And I think you got to tip your cap to him. Obviously, he's doing good things against the Knicks right now. I think that's one of the reasons they lost was Haliburton was so effective and just breaking down the defense and getting everybody their shot and setting the table. And the raw numbers don't show it, but obviously he had a huge impact in the series overall.
And if you are looking for raw numbers, we're recording this. It's halftime of game 4 between the Pacers and Knicks right now. The Pacers are up 69-64, and Tyrese Haliburton has 20 points, 10 assists, and 9 rebounds at the break on 6 of 12 shooting, 4 of 7 from 3. So the good basketball from him has not stopped, and he was just named All-NBA. I think he lived up to it in that series, even if the raw numbers. And I thought at times the Cavs did a good job. Like even in game 2, I thought he had a really good fourth quarter. Obviously, he had a shot. I thought for the first 42-ish minutes of that game, the Cavs did a great job on him. But this kind of gets back to what we talked about last segment with the mental toughness. Like that didn't matter. He still found a way. And that is the thing that you look at and say, okay, that is what the Cavs needed a little bit more of. And then the fifth and final reason, another guy named Ty, this one, Ty Jerome, did not play nearly as well in this series.
No, he did not. And, again, you could look at the raw numbers and they're obviously not good. But even in game 1, so Darius doesn't play in game 1. Ty plays, he has a bigger role. He puts up 21 points, 8 assists. And I was surprised that his numbers were that good. When you watch the game and you're like, he's doing too much. Like he's clearly pressing. He's taking a lot of shots that he doesn't normally take. He's forcing the ball up there. And he ended up with 21 points. That's great. After game 1, if you look at the rest of his series numbers, 4.8 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, shot 23.3% overall. As far as I know, he was not hurt. Finished third in 6th Man of the Year voting, was fantastic all season for the Cavaliers, proved what he could do when he was healthy in a contract year, and just went out and kind of killed his value. And like I said, we could point to injuries for a lot of guys. You know this better than I would. As far as I know, Ty was not hurt. And he was
I think everybody at that time of year is dealing with something. I don't think Ty was dealing with anything significant. If he was, It's not something I've been made aware of. And to go from like those numbers that you listed off in terms of scoring and percentages, like he was never a high volume player during the year for the Cavs because he didn't play a ton of minutes. He wasn't required to play a ton of minutes. Like he played less than 20 minutes a game. And I do think that's part of the reason why he didn't win 6th Man of the Year. But he did it on over 50% from the floor and 44% from 3-point range.
Yeah.
And all of that just vanished in this series.
It didn't just vanish. It collapsed. Like it's not like he shot 43% from 3 and went down to 38. Like, that would be great. No, he shot 23%
the Cavs would have won that series.
overall.
If he would have shot 38% with the role that he had, the Cavs would have won that series.
I forget what game it was, probably game 2. He was one of 16 or something like that.
One of 14 in game 2. He was
one of 14
from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3. He had 2 points, 2 turnovers, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, was a -5 in 28 minutes.
Yeah. And it's like, if Ty Jerome would have gone 2 of 14, we would have won the game. It's like, that's not asking a lot. And no, he was just, I hate to like pile it on him, but he was probably the most disappointing individual player for me. Injuries aside, he was by far the most disappointing player for me, because it's a guy, when you're going against a deep team and you need your depth to shine through, and he gives you performances like that, that was horrible.
Well, and when you were sizing up the series before it started, you looked at like the backup point guard battle, Ty Jerome against TJ McConnell. You would think, the Cavs win that handily.
Yeah.
Like, not even close, not even a conversation. And it wasn't a conversation, just not in the way anyone anticipated it not being a conversation.
No, like I said, it's just not good overall. That was in the time we needed him the most, he was at his worst.
So where do you think the Cavs need to go from here, Greg?
Well, that's a great question, because they don't have a lot of resources to do anything. I use Yossi Gosling does a great job of updating his cap sheet site, which is what I refer to, because he factors in draft picks and cap holds and all this. Right now, the Cavs are $11.2 million over the second apron is what they project to be. I don't see a world where you want to stay there. And maybe they're there for a year because they want to bring back Ty Jerome, I'm sure, even though he had a bad series, but you're limited because you can't go out and give that money to anybody else. You don't have the taxpayer mid-level exception like you've had it, or the non-taxpayer mid-level exception like you've had in the past, where you could throw $14 million at a guy. You don't have that. Evan Mobley, congratulations on winning Defensive Player of the Year. You just heard our cap sheets, because that's another $8 million we have to pay you, which obviously is a rule that they need to change, but that's a different podcast. This is a team that, when they made the trade for DeAndre Hunter, my very first thought was they are screwed financially next year. Not like, I'm so excited they got DeAndre Hunter. I was like, wait, we're trading Karis LeVert's expiring deal for a guy that makes $23 million. That's going to make things really tricky this offseason. Number one, you're going to have to rely on Jalen Tyson. I think he's going to have to be a rotation player for you next year. You took him in the first round. He looked good at Summer League. He's an older guy, older rookie this year. I think he's going to have to be a rotation player for you. After that, you just hope that you are a championship level team that will attract guys who normally wouldn't take, that would be trying for more than the veterans minimum. Maybe like a Brook Lopez or somebody that's at the end of their career that you could bring in and say, this is what we can offer you. We know you can make more money somewhere else, but we do have a chance of winning a championship. You got to try to get those guys. But, a lot of times those signings look good in August. And then by April, it's like, oh my gosh, like this guy's, he's looking at every bit of 36. So it's going to be tough for him. I'm a believer that I think it's going to be tough to keep Jarrett Allen. I think you keep Donovan, you keep Darius, you keep Evan. I think Jarrett's going to be the tough one, because you got him on a really good contract for one more year. Then his deal jumps up another $8 million. I just think if you're looking to break things up a little bit, you're probably going to have to trade one of those core pieces, and it's going to be Jarrett, because you can't trade Evan. I don't even think I'd trade Evan for Giannis. I'd be very scared to do that. I love Giannis, but the 7-year age difference would scare me. Darius is an all-star when he's healthy. Donovan is at the peak of his powers. Jarrett would be the guy that, if I'm looking to make a change, that'd probably be where it's at.
And I'm with you on the Jarrett thing. Like the Evan for Giannis thing, if you could do it in a vacuum, if it was just Evan for Giannis, sure, but it's not. It's so much more than just that. So that's why it's a no. I also do think that with trading Jarrett, potentially, whether it's this offseason or in the future, like if and when the Cavs have to break up this core, Jarrett Allen is probably going to be the first one that's gone, whether it's this summer, next summer, whenever it is in the future. I do think that it's not like some addition by subtraction. Like the Cavs are not going to be better because Jarrett Allen is gone. That's silly to think.
Not at all.
But I do think that is something that could go into maximizing Evan Mobley. And that is what is worth thinking about when you are also having these conversations.
I agree. I actually looked up these numbers right before I popped on with you. They weren't as bad, or they weren't as different as I thought. I looked at the Cavs numbers with Mobley at the 5, which I'm sure you've seen many times. But Mobley at the 5, they had a net rating of plus 12 this year. With Mobley at the 4, Jarrett at the 5, it was like plus 11.5. It wasn't as big of a difference as I thought. Last year, if you would have said, we're going to go into the 2024, 2025 season with Evan at the 5 full time, I would have been scared. I've been like, oh, I don't know if he's ready, muscle-wise, frame-wise. I think he's ready. I really do. And you're going to see a lot of skinny centers out there this year. I just think what a weapon that gives you. If you go from 2 years ago having 2 non-shooting bigs to now, if you trade Jarrett Allen and Mobley's your 5 and he's shooting 3s now, that's a huge part of your offense that you just unlocked. You've got DeAndre Hunter that you can use as your starting power forward if you need to. You've got some wing depth if you keep Isaac Okoro, if you keep Dean Wade. There's some depth there. I think Evan's ready to play the 5 full time. And like you said, if you trade Jarrett, it's not because Jarrett's a bad player. Jarrett's a great NBA player. I love Jarrett Allen. But if that's the key to this team is unlocking Evan Mobley and getting the most you can out of him, that means sacrificing Jarrett Allen, and that's what you have to do.
So let me sell you, and this will be the last thing we do today, but let me try and sell you on not playing Evan at center full time, because I don't know if he is quite ready for that physically. And I don't know if it's the best thing for the Cavs to ask him to just say, hey, you're going to play 33 minutes tonight in the regular season, and all of those minutes are going to be at center. I don't know if that's the best thing for the Cavs or for Evan. But think back to what the Lakers looked like in 2020 when they won the title. And they had Anthony Davis, who was their starting power forward.
Yeah.
But when it mattered, he played center. He probably played more center than power forward. But they would start Dwight Howard at however old he was at that point. He was not prime Dwight Howard or anything resembling it. They would start JaVale McGee at center. Like, they would start these guys that was really easy to just say, hey, you're going to play 15 minutes and that's it. You're going to be our center for 15 minutes tonight. And the other minutes are going to be split, and another guy's going to play 7. So you've got 22 minutes right there. And that cuts down how many minutes Evan needs to play at center. But when it matters, he's going to play center. Like, that is what the Lakers were able to do then with Anthony Davis. And I think that should be the type of blueprint if the Cavs do want to repurpose essentially the salary Jarrett makes and put it into other pieces. That is the type of blueprint I think could make a lot of sense for them.
That's a great point. And like I said, if you do that, that's great, but you don't do that with Jarrett Allen. You don't do that for a guy who's making $20 million. That's if you could sign, like I said, if you could sign a Brook Lopez, if you can sign a Steven Adams, if you can sign one of these guys that can come in and technically be your starter, but they're not going to play much. I saw one like mock trade that was like Jarrett Allen to the Grizzlies, and the Cavs would get like Zach Edey, Jalen Wells. And it was like, I'm guessing that would be the plan. Like, you would play as Zach Edey for like 15 minutes a game and start him and then move away from that. I don't know. So yeah, that makes sense if you're paying you're paying a center like $5 million, but not if you're paying him $20 million, he's one of your core pieces. But yeah, I can see the Cavs going that route if they find a center on the cheap that they could do that with.
Greg, what do you have coming up in the near future at Bleacher Report that everyone needs to keep an eye on?
Yeah, today we just put out, I did a dream trade targets for all 30 teams this offseason. So 90 different players that you can look through. Obviously, some teams have bigger dreams than others when it comes to trade targets with assets and money and second aprons and all that. So if you look at the Cavs list, number 1 is a big one. Number 2 and 3 are much more realistic. So yeah, that's I think right now it's the top story on Bleacher Report. You can go check that out. Maybe it won't be by the time this podcast is up, but no matter who you cheer for, I've got trade targets on there for you. So,
well, we love that, Greg. Thank you so much for taking the time to do Locked on Cavs, and thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. leave us a nice review, be a friend, tell a friend about the show. And as we get out of here, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell on YouTube. I'll be back tomorrow with Spencer Davies talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.